I honestly do not know where to begin with this album, if you want to even call it that, this travesty. There's just nowhere to start with how awful this is. No redeeming qualities whatsoever. It's atrocious to me that this was even released as a album, as promoted as being music. And this is something I don't even know where to go with this. I mean, let's dive in. Let's start with the music of this album and the actual music. Let's ignore the vocal work. Let's ignore the lyrics. Let's just talk about the music for a second. This album does not know what it wants to be. It is all over the place with its musical styles. It has some psychedelic guitar work. It has some weird synth music in there. It has some like poppy hip hop beats in there. It has just some piano tracks. There's some almost moments where she tries to do some kind of spoken word. I don't even know if that's the right word for it. It's so all over the place. It doesn't know what it wants to be, and it's too long. There's so many tracks on here that it just ranges so much, and that's not a bad thing for when you can do all those things well. But if I use the phrase jack of all trades, master of none, that would be just too kind to this album. It's so scatterbrained. It really never knows where it wants to be musically, and it never settles into anything, and it never does anything very well. And Miley Cyrus teamed up with the Flaming Lips on here, and I have no feelings on that band whatsoever, but I mean, I don't know what they did. It's just atrocious on here. Whatever, it's trying to, like I said, even the guitar work parts on here are trying to be kind of out there and psychedelic and whatever, but it just fails miserably. There is no point at this album where it becomes enjoyable to listen to. There's nothing on here at all musically. It is painful to sit through this, and it only gets worse from there. That's just the music. When we factor in the vocal work on here, that's one of the saddest parts about this album is her vocal work is awful. It is just absolutely nauseating to listen to through this album. There's certain tracks on here where I legitimately cannot listen to more than 5-10 seconds of her. And there's tracks, even the tracks where she tries to sing on here are just so bad. I can't even fathom this, how she actually thought that this was a good release or a good evidence of her actual work. And it's sad because we know that she can sing. We've heard her sing, and if you don't believe me, you can look up her cover of Jolene, which is absolutely fantastic, and other work that she's done. And in the past, even her pop work has been okay. I mean, it's never really done anything special, but it wasn't horrible. I mean, she's not the greatest singer in the world. I'm not going to say as far as she's a fantastic singer, but not this. She's way better than this. This is just atrocious. This is literally a travesty of an album, and it's so bad. I can't even get over it. I mean, you have just some of the worst songs I have ever heard put on here. And then you not even the vocal work. When you get into the actual lyrics and themes of these songs, there's literally 2 themes on this album, or 3 maybe. There's weed, there's sex, and there's space, whatever. I mean, this album sounds like it was written by a kid who smoked pot for the first time and thought they were just enlightened, and went out and downloaded or pirated a copy of GarageBand and made this album. And I mean, that goes to the production as well, which is also just so all over the place on here that it just, nothing on here works at all. There is nothing on here. There's no redeeming qualities to this album. There's never a point where I was listening to this and said to myself, okay, at least I can understand she tried on this, or this is, okay, I get what she was going for on here. There is never a point, or there's never a point where I can say, well, at least the music's good, or at least her vocals are good, or at least her lyrics, at least something on here, but like, there is nothing at all on here that makes it worth a free download. I mean, I feel like I should be paid just for sitting through that album. And you know what? Miley Cyrus and her dead pets, I envy her dead pets, because at least they got some sort of escape from this hell where this album actually exists and was produced and was put out and released to the world. I mean, this is probably the worst thing I've ever sat through in my entire life. And like I said, I mean, if I felt any kind of evidence that she tried on this album, or that, you know, there was something on here that I could connect to and say, well, at least it has this going for it. But there's nothing. It doesn't feel like she tried on here. And look, Miley, I get it. You were a Disney star. You grew up a little bit too fast. The spotlight was on you. You had a famous dad to start off life with, and you're trying to separate yourself from that. But you've been trying to separate yourself for so long. It's just, it's not even a phase anymore. It's tiresome. If you're going to continue a career like this, you really need to put that past behind you. I mean, even other Disney stars like Selena Gomez, at least, who have varied into pop music, are at least making reasonable music. I mean, definitely safe music. She released an album last year I thought was pretty decent. It was nothing new. It was, again, playing it very safe. But it wasn't this. It wasn't, you know, I do appreciate trying to branch out and trying to kind of vary yourself, but this isn't an experimentation. This is just cheap imitation of experimentation. It's just, there's nothing on here. I mean, this is the shit you get from that girl at Coachella wearing the headband and talking about moon rocks and all that shit. That's what you get on here, and that's what it sounds like half the time you're listening to, the incoherent ramblings of somebody who's, you know, just done LSD for the first time in their life or something and just can't even get over it. Like, it's... Honestly, there's nothing on here. There is nothing. And if anything, after listening to it again a year later, I feel stronger about this than I did previously. I mean, I first listened to the album and I hated it, obviously. If you saw my original review, it was complete sarcasm. But this is just, I listened to it again. I can't even imagine at what point she put this out and thought this was a good idea, or even at some point where she didn't go back on it and say, okay, I made a mistake. This wasn't my best work, as it wasn't who I really wanted to represent myself as being. And I mean, oh my God, it's just, like, I really feel like I want to throw up right now listening to her music. Thank you so much for watching that review rant of that album. I just put myself through that so you do not have to. Avoid at all costs. Again, I always appreciate hearing from you guys. So if you have feelings about this album or about the things I just said about it, go ahead and leave a comment down below. You can follow me on all social media channels, on Twitter at Metalloud, on Instagram Metal_Loud, as well as there is a Facebook page for Metalloud. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more.